Now we're going into an entirely different area, testing and certification. We have Russell Bennett, who has 20 years, more than 20 years experience in R&D in all kind of projects all over the world, including North America, of course, Asia and Europe. He will give us some insight on the test and certification activity group currently.
Thank you. As Patrick just said, I'm Russell Bennett. I'm the program manager for CWG. A lot of people wonder what a program manager is. In Microsoft, they say that PM stands for provider of meals because they're the guys who order coffee and donuts for the engineers to eat. And I can see John Lamb at the back smiling. I know that test and certification is a little bit of a dry subject, and also I'm standing between you and coffee. So I thought I'd spice this up a little bit with a free giveaway. And it's not another fleece jacket. In a couple minutes, I'm going to give you software and documentation worth approximately $250,000. Everybody looks up from their screen. Good. Where's the clicker? We'll get to that in a second. So CWG came over with Unified Communications Interoperability Forum. It was part of the fundamental philosophy that profiles and specs and best practices are great, but where they actually come to life is when you're able to implement and test and verify compliance against those. So we kicked off the working group, and it took quite a long time to get to something that's actually tangible and downloadable. We had to do an RFP and select vendors, two of which are here in the audience today. Then we had to get some specs and get a contract written and all that administrative baloney that program managers are great at. And so we've now got to a point whereby we've got something to share with you. The two projects we were working on at the time of the merger were SIP over IPv6 networks, which I'll go into more in a minute, and the H.265 HEVC mode spec. Now that, as the slide says, is on hold because the activity group were working on 264 SVC, and then about 5 months ago or something like that, they decided to flip forward into 265. So we had to put the project on hold till they finished the revision of the spec. Alex tells me it's there or nearly there. It's coming real soon. As the slide says, we've engaged HCL Americas. We've got 2 reps here from that team who are ready and waiting to get started on that project. And at the end of that, we will have a test and certification program for 265 HEVC. No, wrong button. There we go. So on to the specifics of the SIP over IPv6. The AG chair is Brad Chalker, who's there in the audience. I'm sure most of you know him. The goal of SIP over IPv6 was to kind of plug this hole in people's implementations because, as we all know, IPv6 has been around for about 20 years or whatever, but the actual rollout and adoption of it has been fairly limited. And we needed to figure out what was going to be an implementable spec. And that spec had to be complete, number one, and comprehensive. It had to be something that was generally acceptable to the industry, and we know that vendors love their JITC certifications, so they all aspire to get that, and most of the vendors in this room have probably been through that process. If you go on the JITC website, you'll see all the vendors that are already compliant. And it also had to be something that people would normally aspire to comply with in the course of their product strategy, which once again the JITC requirement fulfills. So for those of you who may be from companies that are non-US based, you may or may not be interested in getting US DoD certification, but turns out that with the nature of military engagements these days, the coalitions and so on all need to talk to each other. So I think it's a valid certification even if you're not a US-based company, your markets aren't in the US. But it is not, just to be clear, there's nothing military about the spec. You can go take a look at it. There's nothing military about the spec. It's very general, it's very common sense. There's no weird DoD proprietary stuff in there. It's all straight out the RFCs. So what we did with the University of New Hampshire, and you'll be hearing from them in a little while, is we built a test plan and a pre-certification verification tool. There's also a private network for inter-site testing. That may be from one of your labs to another in Europe or Asia or whatever, or between companies if you want to do that. And that is available to be used 24/7. I'm not going to get into the fine details of the tool and all the components of the program because that's coming at 10:55. And you're going to get a demo and full explanation. Just a little bit about the test network. You can see that UC Insights doesn't have a graphics department, but it does the job. There's your lab and then other people's labs, or maybe your labs in other parts of the world. You're connecting over an IPv6 VPN. It's not click to call. You do have to download some software and install it and get a password and so on and so forth. We're putting documentation on the portal how to do that. And I was able to do it with a little bit of help. So you can do it too, and certainly your engineers can. And as you can see, you just go into the UNH network and then back out. And there's elements that are already existing and elements that you're able to donate into the network. If you wanted people to bang on your equipment, you could loan that or donate that to the network, and it'll be there 24/7 for other people to bang on. So the status is that the program is complete. I guess we kind of drew the line under it in June. There's a test plan, test tool, documentation, and the network that I've already talked about. It's readily downloadable today from the portal. So if you're an IMTC member, you have got access to it. You could go and take a look. Right now, it's in the CWG SIP over IPv6 work group, so you got to go on the menu and click on that. But there it is. So there's the portal, and is there a pointer here? I guess not. So this is the zip file that you would download, and it's under the SIP v6 test tool folder. It's installable. The test server runs on Linux. The clients run on Apple, Mac, and Linux, I think, Tim. And as I've already said, Tim's going to be giving a detailed description and demo at 10:55. When you download the zip file, that's what you get. You can see the installs for Linux and Windows and macOS. And so, and the documentation's all there and everything. So it's there today. Now I said at the beginning, $250,000. That was just a number that Tim and I worked out, right? That the amount of effort it would take for you, if you were starting today, to replicate what we've already got here for free, would take more than one engineer year. So, you know, 250, 300, 200, who cares? It's a lot of money and a lot of effort, and it's available for you to use today. And if, you know, it doesn't fit your needs, I mean, at the very least, a 400-page test plan with thousands of test cases in it is a starting point for you to go in whatever direction you want. All right, so it's certainly worth a look. So the thing I'm working on now is the promotion of the program. And I'm working with a marketing group on that. Not a lot of people knew about it. There is a link right there on the imtc.org homepage. And I found out in the board meeting this week that some of the board members hadn't seen that. So I am working on making the membership more aware of this, and this talk is part of that project. We're going to be doing some outreach and social media and so on and so forth, not only to make existing members aware, but future members who may want to, you know, for the low price of $15,000 to join IMTC, get access to $250,000 worth of engineering time and effort. I'll go on to the extensibility in a second. So future projects. I've already mentioned the 265 project, which is ready to go as soon as the spec is finished. I've already mentioned that we've awarded the contract to HCL Americas. The price that we negotiated was based on the 264 spec, so we're going to have to review the statement of work when the 265 spec is finished. I don't think there's going to be a big change. And I've already mentioned that HCL as well as UNH are enrolled as IMTC members. So they're able to participate in activity groups and various different IMTC meetings, the super op and so on and so forth. The other things we've been talking about in the board meeting this week are SHVC payload signaling. I think Alex referred to that yesterday. SDN, we heard all about that yesterday. That's another area that we could implement as a test and cert program. And then potentially taking the SIP v6 into the Volte domain, working with the IMS activity group, so on and so forth. So that's my talk. Those are the contacts. Tim O'Neill from Polycom is the chair. Brad and Tim are here in the room, as am I. Sam is the one person who doesn't have an excuse for being here. He's only like 400 yards that way, but he's not here today. So with that, any questions? Cool. Download and enjoy.
Thank you. 400 pages, SIP test specification. This is for free for all IMTC members. It's cool, I think. Before I let you go to the coffee break, Patrick has to say something to you. Go ahead.
Thank you. As you know, we have had a good leadership award presentation yesterday, but we have still one person to go that we would like to recognize. Yesterday we had IMTC Leadership Awards as well as Service Awards for people that contribute significantly to the organization as a volunteer. And in that function, I would like to recognize Marcos Anisaldo from Nokia, originally, now Microsoft, for his contribution as a director and more importantly, as a treasurer. Because, you know, if we can meet here and if IMTC has enough money to organize events and other things, it's thanks to our treasurer who signs the check and makes sure we don't go over budget. So, Marcus, I would like to give you that plaque for your contributions, and thank you.